Hello, I'm Helen Stace, Chief Executive of the Herefordshire Wildlife Trust, the only charity covering all aspects of wildlife across the county. So in talking about how do we make Herefordshire zero carbon and nature rich, I'm going to focus on the nature rich bit. I'll explain a bit about the nature crisis, talk about our vision for the sort of county we think Herefordshire should be, and think about what we and you can do together. Nature is in crisis and suffering catastrophic declines. The State of Nature report, last issued in 2019, is a regular and definitive health check compiled by 50 conservation organisations. It's well worth reading if you have the time, though a bit depressing, and you can get it off the internet. It shows that many species are suffering a catastrophic decline in abundance. Once common species are becoming scarce. Scarce species are becoming rare. Rare species are going extinct. Britain has lost 133 species already since the 16th century, and 1,200 species are currently under threat. Some species are on the increase, but they're mainly the vigorous common species that tolerate pollution and can oust the more delicate species. Think about nettles on road verges. There are many drivers of change, as this slide shows. Agriculture has had the single biggest impact over the last 8 decades, initially through grubbing up woodland and ploughing of meadows for farmland, but increasingly due to pollution and other impacts of farming. But climate change impacts are now taking their toll and are the second biggest threat to wildlife. So things are not looking good for wildlife. The climate is changing fast, even in the West Midlands, and the pace of change is accelerating. Annual average temperatures are increasing. The growing season is getting longer. Rain patterns are changing. There's less rain in the summer and more in the winter. So there'll be more droughts, more floods, and more stormy weather. Wildlife just can't cope with the changes. It can't adapt fast enough to the changing weather patterns, and it can't move through the countryside to escape the change. Some species respond faster than others, but that in itself causes problems. Think about the chiffchaff. They're small birds that feed their nestlings on those caterpillars that eat the new young leaves of trees. If the trees come into leaf earlier because the spring starts sooner, but the chiffchaff still nests at the usual time, they miss the main flush of caterpillars and can't feed their babies. And that sort of dilemma is repeated in many aspects of wildlife. Herefordshire has already suffered many changes. The change has been gradual, so many people have not noticed, crept upon us unawares. Older people may have forgotten the flowery woodland thickets and hedgerows, the flocks of lapwing, and the bubbling curlew of their youth. But younger people don't even realise what they're missing. Herefordshire flatters to deceive. It looks like a green and pleasant land, but it's lost so much of its wildlife. Less than 5% of Herefordshire is managed for wildlife at the moment. But government has set a target of 30% managed for nature by 2030. So how can we help make Herefordshire a county with thriving nature? We need space for nature across our farmland and reaching into the heart of our towns and villages. We need healthy natural rivers and floodplains, providing clean water and reducing flooding. This picture shows the River Wye 25 years ago, before many of the riverside meadows were ploughed up and lost. You can see white drifts of water buttercup flowers on the surface. As many of you will know, because it's been in the news a lot recently, water buttercups have gone into massive decline, as has much of the other river wildlife, due to soil, fertilisers and chicken manure washing into the river to pollute the water. That's something that needs to change, and change fast. We need flowery meadows, commons and orchards full of colour and buzzing with wildlife, so we can't afford to lose any more to development. We need natural woodlands alive with birdsong and carpeted in flowers. These photographs are also older photographs, and many woodlands aren't like this anymore because there are too many deer in the woodlands grazing out all the flowers, shrubs and young trees. And with no young trees to replace the old trees as they die, the woodlands are effectively dying on their feet, and we need to act now to reverse that. We want road verges, hedgerows and village greens managed for wildlife, not mown or cut to extinction in an excess of tidiness. We want wild spaces within 10 minutes of every home, so everyone can benefit from being close to nature. This haze of purple in this slide is Devil's Bit scabious, I love that name, on Colwell Village Green. Here my son used to chase grasshoppers, butterflies and ghost moths. Thanks to Colwell Parish Council, this site is still there and being well managed, so all those species have survived for future generations of children. So how do we make this happen? Regen Ben has already explained the multiple benefits of regenerative farming, making space for nature, saving our soils, trapping carbon and stopping pollution. We need to establish more trees. I expect you've been hearing a lot about that, but it's not just about tree planting. We can thicken up our hedgerows and allow hedgerow trees to grow. We can replace the fallen apples in our traditional orchards. After all, they're one of the main features of Herefordshire that people come to visit. We can fence deer out of woodlands to allow trees to set seed and grow again, and we can encourage natural regeneration. For rivers, we need to restore wildlife in the headwaters and on the floodplains to provide natural flood management and to allow the river wildlife to re-establish. And we need to regreen our towns and cities, making more space for wildlife. So generally, we just need to make more space for nature to meet government's target of 30% of land managed for nature by 2030. Their hope lies in the creation of nature recovery networks. That means more nature reserves and green spaces, bigger green spaces, better managed green spaces, and better connected landscapes to allow wildlife to respond to climate change. So the mantra is more, bigger, better, better connected. So if that's one thing you take away from today, remember that: more, bigger, better, better connected. There are many natural benefits of taking this approach, as Helen has explained. We would have more nature for people to enjoy. People would have better mental and physical health and improved well-being. And Herefordshire would be a greener place to live in and visit. We could have better flood control and less erosion of soils and river pollution. We could lower emissions and have better carbon sequestration. We could have cleaner and more plentiful fresh water and locally grown healthy food. And in towns and cities, the trees and new green spaces would be improvements to the air quality and shading for buildings and homes. Nature can be good for us. As Dieter says, it's a win-win-win. So how can we help? How can you help? To quote Tolkien and Greta Thunberg, no one is too small to make a difference. So you can act now and do lots of things. You can get closer to nature, get out there to see and enjoy nature and wildlife. Introduce your children and your grandchildren to nature. As David Attenborough says, no one will protect what they don't appreciate, and they won't appreciate what they haven't experienced. Speak up for nature, support calls for action, challenge those in power, write to your MP, persuade your local town and parish councils to do more of their green spaces, and get your other community organisations to do their bit. Act for nature. Join Herefordshire Wildlife Trust's Team Wilder. We're working towards a wilder Herefordshire. Or volunteer in your local community. Act wherever you think you can make a difference. Lead by example. Adopt a more sustainable lifestyle. Consume ethically. Rewild your garden. Feed the birds. Reduce your carbon footprint and reduce your use of plastic. Or join the Herefordshire Wildlife Trust. You could become a member and persuade others to join, or support our appeals and help us to raise funds. Every bit helps. So let's make Herefordshire nature rich. In your discussions later on, I hope that you will help make sure that the Citizens' Assembly delivers on its promise to make Herefordshire nature rich. We need more space for nature, or bigger, better, better connected. We need to let nature help in delivering solutions for a win-win-win. And we need to ensure we get the funding we need to do this. Thank you for listening.